Now, mind you, I had long been boycotting. I had a personal boycott. My friends in law school had a personal boycott against this radio station because he was so racist and so inflammatory. He actually insulted children with disabilities. He made fun of children with autism, said they just needed a good beating. So he's just a bigot in every sense of the word. But when it became an issue about him talking about the Lumbee Indians, my folks got very, very incensed. I mean, he went on a 20-minute tirade and basically said we're inbreeds. And in my opinion, that's the worst thing you can say about a person. I mean, you're attacking them genetically, saying I'm genetically inferior to everybody else in the country. So my tribe approached me wanting me to do something because they know I'm a rabble-rouser, I guess. They had heard about me, and before this they had no use for me because I'm the one taking up for the little black boy that's beaten at school. So normally my antics were not anything they wanted to have to do with. But now it's the Lumbee people who are being attacked. So let's call Beth and let's get Beth to plan a protest. So I did. I started planning a protest. Hundreds of young people contacted me. We started a Facebook group. We have more than 1,000 members. I know nonprofit organizations that don't have that. These young people were contacting me, craving for some way to attack this. I mean, this is public radio, morning radio, 6 a.m., and this man is saying these things. So I went about planning my protest. I went about organizing these young people, trying to channel their anger into something positive. The Lumbee tribe calls, the Commission of Indian Affairs calls and says, oh, G105 is offering to pay us $100,000. And I said, okay, well, first of all, in our press conference, we said that we were standing up not just for ourselves, but for everybody. So in this buyout, this sellout we're going to do, they're agreeing not to ever say anything about Lumbee people again. But 3 days after their suspension, they were on the clock berating the Mexican consulate. Now tell me what has changed. Are you going to take these people's money and say it is okay? You are going to say as long as it's not me, it's okay. That is not what my people are supposed to stand for. That is not what our communities are supposed to stand for. I watched the Hip Hop Awards on BET last night, and I will tell you, Russell Simmons' acceptance of his award was the most beautiful thing you could ever hear, because he said, what we have is bigger than what the government has. He says there's not an African American group in this country that's more gangster than the administration we have right now. And what we have is beautiful, but we have to work together. We have to combine forces. And when I made a stand, I stood up against my tribe, and I stood up against the Commission of Indian Affairs and said no. And I actually attended the Commission of Indian Affairs meeting with the general manager of this radio station. And they were talking about the buyout, they were talking about the scholarship. And so I finally took my time. I asked the chair if I could have a few words, and I wasn't supposed to, but I knew that they wouldn't deny me the opportunity to speak if I asked in public, because everybody knew that I had already held this protest. And it had gotten a lot of media coverage. I don't know how, but it did. So I stood up, and I looked each of those elders in the face, my Lumbee elders, and I said, is this what you stand for? Is a measly $90,000 enough? Are you going to sell your dignity? This is about your community. This isn't about you. This is about attacking an institution that has told you for your entire existence that you are less than. And there's not a dollar amount that can buy that back. The only thing that can buy that back is a struggle with each one of us. And so that's what I told those folks. I said, this is personal. I said, why is it okay for them to say it about a Hispanic person or an African American person, but it's not okay with us? Why have you been listening to G105 this whole time, and when they make fun of illegal immigrants, you probably laugh along? It's a personal thing. It's a daily decision to not accept this. And then once as Nancy said, once it becomes personal and internalized, you become like I'm sure many of you in this group are, where you attack it every time you see it. And then you can start changing people's minds, but only when you live it yourself. Only when you live it yourself can you change people's minds. So in my recommendations for tackling racism in media and in life, because media is just a demonstration of what we see every day. We understand that the things that the media displays, for instance, Roderick and I were talking about this young man who was drugged to death in Paris, Texas, that none of the major media outlets are covering. But we have to make sure that these stories are told in our communities. I also think that we need to discuss our real history. Our textbooks, and this goes back to education, our textbooks are creating machines who believe this heroification of these old white men, if I may say so bluntly. It really is a situation where we have created heroes of these people, and then we have created villains of people of color in our history. We need our young people to know their true history, and we need them to be proud of it. And then finally, we need to realize it's all about money. I say this all the time. Racism is just a growth of classism. I want to respond to the question that was asked right before I started about what is the power, and what's the system that controls it. 1% of this world, there is 1% of the population of this world controls 90% of the world's wealth. That is what's controlling racism, and that is the only reason they decide to subjugate entire classes of people based on their color and their economic status. It's because they want to keep the 90% that they've got going. And with that, that's all I have to say, and thank you very much.